Armstrong from Head to Toe Spine and Sports Therapy. Today I'm here with Loka Murphy, who is an athletic trainer, and he founded the Green Lake Running Group, which has actually become a pretty huge running group in the Seattle area. So we're going to talk about our insecurities. That we were talking about our hair issues earlier. My cowlick and Loka's shortage of hair. So
just my bangs are too short.
Your bangs are way too short. You know. So we're going to open that question up, and then we're going to talk about sort of how Loka's used running to help him really push himself through some things in his life. And so I think maybe we'll start with maybe the question on how you really got into running in the first place, because you haven't always been a runner, right?
No, not at all. Grew up loving basketball. Basketball
You're tall, so.
Well, it was my favorite sport, and I really liked to watch basketball, and I had some stars that were basketball players and followed them, and I played all the time. Got to high school, got cut from 3 out of the 4 teams I tried out for. Still kept playing, kept my love for basketball, but no, I think looking back, would it have been fun to do cross country or track in high school? It would have been cool, but I don't know if I'd still be that same person. So I like to think things work out the way they're supposed to, and so I found it when I was supposed to, I think.
Yeah. So when did you find it? Like, were you like mid-20s, mid-30s? I mean, where were you?
I was in my early 30s. I was a new athletic trainer, had a young family, and you watch a lot of athletic people because for my job I just get to watch athletes cruising around and practicing and participating in games, and you somehow feel like because you're in that setting you feel really active, you feel healthy, you feel fit, and then maybe someone takes a picture and you look at that picture and you're like, oh,
wait a minute.
Hey, wait, that I don't look as cool as I thought I did, and wow, I'm looking kind of dumpy. And I think that you can reach a certain point where you're not as fresh and exciting as you used to be, and you can say like, oh, maybe my best years are behind me. And it felt like there was a little bit of depression there in the sense that I just wasn't like feeling, wow, maybe my vision of being this healthy, active person my whole life is not actually coming true. And I'm like, I'm not really exercising that much.
Yeah.
I'm watching other people exercise, but what am I going to do to change that? I think that's kind of where running came in. I was probably 33. Had a friend that had died suddenly of a brain aneurysm.
Oh my gosh.
He was a mentor, great friend of mine. He had a wife, a 3-year-old daughter, and a 3-month-old daughter, and all of a sudden just poof, he was gone. And it was a real wake-up call for me. I think his passing was a catalyst for me to be like, wow, all these things I'm putting off till tomorrow, what if you don't have it tomorrow? If I died right now, am I going to be like, oh, I felt like I lived my life to the fullest.
Yeah.
Did I live my life to the fullest? No, I feel like I'd be really disappointed. Like, all right, come on with me, you're dead now. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I had all these things I wanted to do. So thinking like, well, what if I started kind of living more like, if I died, it'd be okay, because I felt like I was trying, I was competing, I was participating. I was trying to strive to be better. I don't know, I think that's important. I don't know if everyone does that, and I think unless you have a wake-up call, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's really an interesting part of our human psyche, because you see people who have, lost a limb, or, something catastrophic has happened to them, and they've then gone and climbed Mount Everest, or they've done something like this amazing, piece that, and I often wonder that myself, like, do we really live our life to the fullest? And what does that really look like for us too? Like, I think it's different for everyone.
Absolutely. I agree.
And I think running is the piece for some people, and maybe something else is the piece for other people. But it's
it can't be running for everybody.
It can't be running for everybody.
It can't be running for everybody, but having a thing.
Having a thing.
What is your thing?
Right, and recognizing like, hey, am I doing everything to make my day the best day? And I think that's really neat. I think it's amazing that you were able to hone in. I think 30 is really young, actually, to figure that out. I think maybe, right?
I mean, I didn't feel young.
You didn't feel, and you lost your abs. So I mean.
Yeah, at one point I was just like, I was just always saying like, I feel old. I'm old, and I was married at the time, and my wife was like, if you're saying you're old, and that means I'm old, and I'm not old, and
I'm
so
not old.
It's a mindset.
Yeah.
I think that mindset of I felt old, and you can reverse that, but at the time that was just where I was at, and I was like, man, and maybe I was depressed. Who knows?
Yeah.
I was living in Seattle, and maybe Seattle's can get people sometimes with the grayness and the raininess. And what are you going to do to combat that? You think of mental depression, you know, not being active probably isn't a very good way to address that. So.
So you started running.
Yeah, I started running.
Now, did you like hire a coach, or did you just go out there and just start running?
Initially, I just started running, and it was just like, oh, I'm going to go for a run, because I think I'd had aspirations at different times in my life where, you're Rocky and you just want to like go and train. I mean, who doesn't want to just go and train? Like all of a sudden, like I'm gonna start lifting, I'm gonna do push-ups, I'm gonna do sit-ups, and I'm gonna go running, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
But then you'd be like, that was great, I'm gonna keep this going, and then a couple weeks go by, and like, dang it, I lost my routine, or where'd my momentum go? I had something going, like so. It was just starting running. I had a friend at church who would do pickup soccer on Saturday mornings, and he'd just show up at this field, and like there'd be like, I want to say there'd be like 50 people on the field, and you just show up and you jump on a side, and so you'd run around, and it was just great. It's like, wow, this is awesome. This is like I'm really I love this Saturday morning routine. You just show up and you play soccer and you run around like crazy for 2 hours, and it's just great, great exercise. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna do running on the side. I'm gonna get in shape so that like, when I do my soccer,
you're feeling better.
I'm even better.
Yeah.
What I ran into though is I didn't want to get injured playing soccer, so I would not be able to run, because like it's all like.
Interesting.
I remember one time getting kicked in the shin, and then for that next run, I was like, my shin's really hurting for the run, and I'm like, well, I got to be careful because I got to be able to run. Yeah, and so got the idea to train for the Seattle Half Marathon.
Oh wow.
I was like, let's go. This is going to be a great little carrot to train for. Built up. I think I made it as high as 7 or 8 miles, and I was thinking like, oh, this is happening. Caught a cold. Ended up taking a couple weeks off for that cold. And then when I was ready to go again, 3 months had passed by, and I hadn't run at all. And I was like, oh, so much for that. And then 3 months, I'm like, oh, I think I'm gonna start again. And like, let's go. And it was so discouraging because. It was a completely restart. Like anything that I'd accomplished before with any of the running, the gains that I'd made were gone. And it's like, how can this be? Like this makes zero sense. It's like, how am I starting all over again? It's like one of those board games where all of a sudden they send you back to the beginning. And you're like, wait a minute, I got so far on the board, and here I am now.
It's so true with exercise, though. I mean, that's the big question. I mean, you and I both have training in this area, but you quit even for 2 weeks. And it's like you never did it, especially running. You just feel like I'm just starting to run again.
Yeah.
I did a whole 2 miles yesterday, and it felt terrible.
See, that's why runners can't take any time off for injuries, because they don't want to lose any ground.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, I work out. It's like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So you kind of pushed yourself. So you fell off. Mm-hmm. And then, so how did you get over? I mean, how did you get over that?
That was definitely discouraging. It's funny when you're brand new to running is you'll go out and you might have a good run, like, okay, good, this is all coming together. Because my vision was I was just going to be able to go for a run at some point, and it was just going to be effortless. Yeah. I was going to be able to breathe, and it was going to be this free feeling where I'm not like, oh man, how much further do I have to go?
Yeah.
I would like, you're not thinking about that. You're just running, and you can feel like you can go forever, and it's just this amazingly free feeling. And so I was like kind of seeking that out. Some runs would be good. I'd be like, oh, I'm working my way there. And then the next one I'd be like, oh, my calf's kind of tight, or my ribs are kind of hurt. Whatever, these different things, and it wouldn't be the same. It was nothing consistent. It was just traveling around. And so like I got to the point at one point where I think I'd have to stretch for like 45 minutes before I could leave the house. And like some mornings I'd wake up and I'm like, oh, my legs are so sore. I think I better take a recovery day. And I hadn't gotten out of bed yet.
Oh yeah.
So I'm so like,
that's a problem.
I'm like, how sore can my legs be? I don't even know. I haven't even gotten up. But like, so it's a lot of internal battle. Like you're fighting yourself, and yourself is trying to necessarily talk you out of it. And oh, you don't need to go run. But then if you do, oh, you feel so proud of yourself. Like, oh man, that was so great. I really didn't want to run, but it ended up being an awesome run. I'm so happy I did it. So that second round, after that 3-month little break, I met a new friend at church, and he's like, hey, I'm a runner. And I was like, I'm a runner too. And then so we were talking, like we both figured out in that conversation that we both love to run in early mornings.
Yeah.
Because at the time, my boys were young.
Yeah.
They're not young anymore. One is 17 and the other is 14. So they've grown a lot, but it was one of those things where I wanted to go for my run, not necessarily disturb our routine in the morning,
Yeah.
and be back in time to help them get up and get dressed and have breakfast and get them to school. And I really liked that routine. So early was great.
Yeah.
And he loved early.
Yeah.
And so we'd go for runs, and it was just great because we could talk, and it was like this built-in, like, oh, hang out with a friend, chat, get to know them, and you're not really thinking about the run as much as you're just kind of caught up in that conversation. The next thing you know, the run's over, and you're like, oh, cool. Same time next week? Yeah, cool. And we decided we're going to train for the Seattle Half because he had done it the year before. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're a veteran. You know all about, like, all of a sudden I looked to him being an expert. And so we just built up, and it was great. We got to the 8 miles and the 9 miles, and I drive the route the night before, set my odometer on my car so I could figure out how far it would be. And I'm like, man, I've been driving forever. When's this turnaround going to be like? Because we're covering, like, Seattle seems super small.
Yeah.
When you start trying to think about running to different spots, you're like, oh,
yeah.
Driving in your car, like, oh, I ran there the other day. It's like kind of a pretty cool feeling. It's like maybe the city isn't as big as I thought it was.
Yeah,
when
I can do it on foot.
You can kind of do it on foot, exactly.
I think it's really. I think I spoke last week with my sister, who's a psychologist.
Okay.
And she had some great advice, but one of them was that what you just went through yourself, which was like, you get down to yourself, and you're kind of like, dark place, and you feel terrible, and you make excuses, and it's just like getting a little bit done, like getting even a short run in, a 15-minuter, and getting that, I feel great, and complimenting yourself, and then having someone that you're accountable to, running with a friend, someone that you're going to run together with.
Absolutely.
And that might lead us to, like, is that maybe kind of where and about you started thinking about starting this running group?
Well, anyway, I was going to mention, comment on that's such a great trick. Just go out for a 5 or 10 minute run. If you're not enjoying it, then turn around and go back. That never happens because once you're doing it, you're good and you're in it. It's just that saying the hardest step is that one out the door. And once you're out the door, everything figures itself out, and you can create all this stuff in here.
True.
But so I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend who said that to me. She used to go, okay, you're getting out of bed, we're going to do 15 minutes, 15-minute run. And I was just like, no, I don't want to. And then so one step out the door. I think that's just an awesome message. Just go. If you don't have your run on, get a run walk, get some movement in, because then you can not make yourself feel all bad.
So anyways, back to your question. What I learned from running with Derek. His name was Derek.
Running with Derek sounds like a blog or a book or something.
His name still is Derek, but
really?
So anyways, running with him meant that all of a sudden I didn't have to think about it. It was one of those things, like, I wasn't going to, I could let myself down. It seemed like turned out I'd learned I could let myself down, but you don't want to let somebody else down. You don't want to be that flake. You don't want to be that coming up with an excuse. Hey man, I'm not up for it today. That text at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I'm not going to run today. It was more like you looked forward to it, and it's you're setting your running clothes out the night before, and it's that carrot that's going to get you there. And I think that kind of planted a seed in my mind, realizing, like, if you have a struggle with kind of running on your own, come run with others. It seems like that can be something. So finished the Seattle Half Marathon.
So you did, you did it.
Ran it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was. I want to say it was easy because it was easy. I felt like I wasn't like touching the ground. I felt like I was just like, this is like it was just like a big celebration because it's just so cool to be in this setting with all these other people, and all of a sudden, like, wait, I get to be like one of these people that get to be with runners, and like I'm a part of something that, like. Maybe I wanted to be a part of that. Like, you watch people from the sideline and you get to see them doing what they do and accomplish. What am I accomplishing? And so it was like, oh, I did it. And then so exciting, finished, you get a medal. They had all this food at the end, and you're just like walking through, just grabbing all this stuff. And I looked like such a rookie because I wore my participation shirt at the race.
Totally.
Don't do that. Sorry, that was but that was fine because at the time I didn't know that wasn't okay. And so it was a great feeling. And then the biggest fear I had, and like people have, you set a goal, you reach that goal, and you've achieved it, so you're good, right?
What do you do next?
Do you move on and do something else, or do you or is that something like, I want to keep it going? How do you keep it going? Because you reached your goal. And so that was my biggest concern. So Derek and I had talked, I was like, hey, we should start a group. We can meet like once a week and run with other people and it'd be this really cool thing.
Yeah.
I think he kind of liked the idea, but then he's also was super busy. And so I sent out a bunch of emails like, hey, all my friends, let's go running. And I said, this is what the plan's going to be. We're going to meet on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. It's going to be at Green Lake at the Bathhouse Theater parking lot, plenty of parking. We'll just run together. It's going to be really awesome. And luckily I had a lot of friends that were like, sure, we'll support you.
Yeah.
We're not runners, but, you know, we'll support you. And I think, you know, that was fine. I mean, the very first Saturday was January 2nd, 2010. Dark, kind of wet morning. Wasn't super warm out. Obviously, January is not the best time to start a running situation. But it was awesome, and it was super fun. And trying to talk or convert people that are non-runners into runners.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned over the years that like that's not the best approach. But if you all of a sudden reach out to runners that already run, you might be able to coax them in, especially if they're like, oh, actually, I just kind of like to run on my own. That's kind of my time. You can get them.
You can get them.
you can get them because as soon as they start running with a few people, all of a sudden they realize, oh, I really like running with people. And those times that I really thought I liked running on my own, I've kind of lost that because like now I've gotten to the point where I'm almost dependent on those other people. So you kind of destroy their little happy. Alone time, but... So.
That's perfect. So you started a running group, which is, I believe, now quite large.
Yeah, I don't know. It's big, but we were the underdogs, which was really fun. We were the small little group that was the beginner casual group, and it's just been really cool to be a part of the evolutionary growth of it as more runners have come, and those runners that have been consistent from the beginning. You watch how people improve. Like with anything, consistency, right? You put in that time and you're consistent with it, you can just see incredible gains.
Yeah.
Depending on how much pressure you're putting on yourself, you might be like, oh, I'm not fast enough. I'm not doing, it's not. But if you could say like, all right, well, go back to where you started. What did that look like?
Yeah.
And where are you now? Because it's always incredible with runners on what they can do. Like, it's like I remember when you ran your first half marathon, and now you're like doing trail running, you're doing ultras, like whatever crazy stuff that you end up getting into, or maybe not running at all because you burnt out and decided it wasn't your thing. I mean, I see all of it. I mean, I see every single scenario, but yeah.
So has it become like, I guess, I think it maybe in my head, like it sounds maybe easy to start a running group, but I'm quite sure it actually is probably a lot of work for you. I mean, has it been, I guess what I'm wondering is, I think about Green Lake and the paths, and the walking and the running path. And I know you're not probably just running on Green Lake, you're probably doing a different circuit, but.
That would get kind of boring after a while.
Yeah, it would definitely get boring. And so, I mean, has it become that you need to develop sort of a code of ethics to join the group or sort of rules or, I mean, has it become challenging in any way for you? Or
it's funny because you think like, oh, running group, that's easy. Just have a place to meet and everyone shows up and everyone just goes for a run and then things happen along the way like, oh, I'm just someone that wanted to have people run together, and then you realize there's got to be, like you said, there's got to be some foundation, there's got to be some expectations. I mean, anything that can come up does because we're just a sample size of the greater Seattle community, and so like you can have all elements, and we don't do background checks or fingerprints on our members, and so like anybody anybody could come be there, show up, and be like, oh, like, hey, how's it going? You want to go for a run? And maybe that would be someone that you don't want to go for a run because who knows what their background is. But we've been lucky. I mean, things are great, but you also learn a ton. It's trial and error. Someone gave me the keys to a running group, and I'm just like kind of figuring it out as I've gone, and it's been really cool. I've had tons and tons of awesome people that have been a part of this growth, and we've learned from each other because I don't know everything, so I've been really lucky to be like, hey, so this is what's going on. Let me tell you the scoop, and then someone's like, all right. Yeah. That's not the way to go about it, and I've obviously made mistakes, and sometimes that's how we learn too, by making bad mistakes. But I think you also kind of go with your gut sometimes as far as what you kind of want it to turn into and what you're hoping it's going to look like, and if it feels like it's moving away from that direction or doesn't match, then I think that's when I'd maybe puff up my fur and be like, hey, wait a minute, like let's not do it that way. And I've also learned to be a little bit cooler. Before I'd be like really heated and like, oh boy, that guy's a hothead. He's a real jerk. And I think I've tried to like not go to those places as much now. But no, it hasn't been easy, but it's been really fun. It's been super rewarding, and it's been really addicting. And it's been, when you see something like, maybe if we could talk about your clinic, I'm assuming that the way your clinic looked when you first opened it, when you first started your practice, versus what it looks like now. I mean, have you learned from this experience?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, of course.
Could you write a book? I mean, could you?
I could write a book. I could write a book. It may not be a really hot read, but yeah. I mean, I think the only way to learn is to make mistakes, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, but I think just any sort of collaboration with a group that big in an urban area is going to have some interesting challenges. But so I think always too. I wonder, like for a beginner runner. Someone who's, and maybe someone who doesn't know a lot of people, maybe someone who's shy about it, just kind of starting out. I always have felt like a running group sounds like a bunch of elite athletes that maybe wouldn't be the right place for me to go. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, if I were kind of a newer runner, maybe shy, maybe new to Seattle, maybe didn't know a lot of people, I mean, is it a good place for me to start, or is it a bad place to start?
Well, we're pretty elite, so maybe not. No, I'm just kidding. But, I mean,
it's the lack of hair. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think with any group, you have all elements. It's just if you're willing to be patient and stick it out. Because, I mean, if you show up for one event and that's what's going to make your impression and help you decide if you fit or not, then maybe not. I think we've been lucky because there's been enough people that have come a few times and all of a sudden met somebody and ran with somebody, and something happened where they all of a sudden felt a connection, and they felt, we're super welcoming, but if you don't know anybody and you're not exactly sure what's going on, it can be super intimidating, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're already insecure to begin with. You don't know anybody, and it's almost like a tryout, or it's like, well, I hope that people like me, and I hope I'm not too I mean, that's our big, that's a big word that I throw around, like slow. It's like, I've honestly, I've been running for almost 10 years, and I've never come across a runner that says I'm too fast. I'm just too fast. That's never anything. So I think every runner wants to, I can't say every runner, but I think for the most part, runners feel a little bit insecure about their pace they could be, and they also feel like they wouldn't mind, they would like to be faster. And I try and, for our group, I say, let's not talk about I'm slow, because I can say, I'm going to go super slow today. It's a recovery day, or I'm just trying to get back into it, so I'm only going to do 9-minute pace. All of a sudden, I made 9-minute pace.
Seems slow.
Mean it's slow. So anybody that doesn't run 9-minute pace, all of a sudden you're almost kind of a shot at them. It's like, well, wait a minute, that's not a positive. That's not very encouraging. And all of a sudden, does that mean that people are going to look at you like, oh, there's that arrogant person that said they're just taking it easy today and they're running faster than I've ever run. So, I mean, we can't compare. But
I think that's really a nice way to put it, though. I mean, I think it is, because that's what I hear too. You wouldn't want to run with me. I'm slow. Or whatever, And I think people do really judge themselves like that. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's a better place to start with a group, even if you feel like you're not maybe at pace with a lot of the group. At least you have some camaraderie and maybe someone who paces with you, and it's kind of fun. At least you have a set time you get to meet a group of people.
I think the group setting is great. I think it creates accountability. It gives you that, I know when it's going to be, I know what time, where it's going to be, and we have a event page where you can look to see who's RSVP'd.
Oh, cool.
So you can so you can see who's going to be there. Not often, but sometimes people post in the comments, hey, here's what my workout looks like today. I'm going to run 3 miles, and this is my goal pace. I might be a little faster, I might be a little slower. Someone can see that and be like, oh, cool, I can do that.
I can do that, yeah.
And then you want to get up and you want to show up for that run because you know that there's someone that you can run with. Knowing that, if I said, hey, I'm going to go for a run today, what does that mean? When? The day goes by pretty quickly, and if I don't put a label on it and say it's going to happen.
Schedule and book it and say it's going to happen, yeah.
I mean, anymore, I'm saying out 5,000 texts, hey, I need someone to run with, just so that it happens, because I know that if I've made it, that someone's going to meet me, it's that run is going to happen.
Yeah.
Versus all these people I'm going to run today. When? I don't know.
Sometime. Whenever I can fit it in.
Maybe after lunch. There's no way I'm running after lunch.
Yeah.
That would be, my stomach wouldn't love that at all. And
accountability.
I don't know. So the group is great that way. You can think about safety-wise, safety in numbers.
Yeah, for
sure. If you have to work early in the morning and you show up for an early run that you can get in and get out, with a group versus by yourself, it seems like that's a better situation. You meet tons of people.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like, I can think about, like, with the world of Facebook. Are you on Facebook? Oh, just kidding. Just kidding. The world of Facebook.
So funny.
when I think of the friends that I had before I kind of started getting into the running world versus, like, how many, like, my whole feed is all running now. And it's like so many people are in my life are runners that I wouldn't have crossed paths with those people. I think that's always strange to me to think about, like, most of these people I know and I interact with are runners, but if I wasn't a runner, these are people that I wouldn't, like, if you are in finance, why would I cross paths with someone that was in finance? Or if you're a lawyer, or if you're a doctor, or, like, maybe a doctor, but I think of just the different professions or how we're all kind of going in our different directions.
It's just a real commonality.
I've built in time throughout the week where I hang out with these people, and we just, I don't know if they do, but I cherish that time. Like, I love that time of just chatting. Like, I'm a little long-winded. I talk a lot. But having that built-in time to chat with those people on those runs, it's important to me. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
So I'm going to switch topics a little bit because you're an athletic trainer, and I think it's maybe fun to talk a little bit about how you have both prevented injury in your own body as a runner, and you're running, and now you're a marathoner. You've gone up from halves. Now you're doing, by the sounds of it, you've done a few marathons. How many?
4.5. No, wait. No, let's see. I'll count really quick. Sorry.
He has to count on his fingers, so we know it's a fair few.
It was going to be 6, but we'll say 5 and 3/4.
5 and 3/4 marathons.
I just had my first DNF, so I ran a 30K. So it was supposed to be a marathon.
Canada.
Yeah.
30K. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was good.
Yeah. So I think it'd be interesting to sort of like what you do as a runner, just if you have any tips to share on both injury prevention, like self-care, other training that you do besides running. Any kind of thoughts around that. We've talked a bit about the mental prep, which I think really is like really a group dynamic and accountability and not being too hard on yourself and kind of getting a foot out the door. But the physical prep would be interesting to hear about.
Yeah, I think what I would say is do as I say, not as I do.
That's not what I want you to say.
I know, exactly. I think it's, I've been super lucky because with a running group, you just see all these different, it's a big experiment where you can just watch all these people doing different things and see what works and see what doesn't.
Yeah.
And watching people get hurt and be like, okay, I know why they're hurt. They took like all this time off over the summertime and they decided, hey, I'm going to train for a marathon, and then
went too hard,
ramped up without any base. So it's like that's going to be like, that's a mistake. So you can kind of sit back and like watch people and say like, oh, that's not going to work. And sometimes it does. So then you're like, oh, okay, well, prove me wrong, I guess. I can tell you things that I could tell you things that would prevent injury and that would kind of improve your longevity with running, but I don't necessarily believe that I've done an amazing job of applying that for myself.
You've been lucky.
I've been lucky, yeah, absolutely, because so many other people around me, like, people are dropping right and left, and I've been really lucky to kind of miss a lot of that. That'll catch up with me. I mean,
luckily you know the right people.
There's a fun slogan that says there'll come a day where I can no longer do this, and today's not that day. So I kind of treat running in the sense that I'm not careless with it, but I do try and appreciate it, because when it's taken away from you, you're like, wow, I really miss it. Those times where I haven't been able to run, you really look back on those times like, I was pretty careless with that. You could think of like a professional football player early in their career, partying late at night and just really just like burning it at both ends. And like, if they had the retrospect to know at the end of their career, wherever it ended, I bet you they'd tell you that they would do things completely different. They would have valued a little bit more of that time of investing in their body and not just like, and so the same can be said with any activity, and running is a great example. There's so many injuries. There
is. I mean, maybe I can speak to it then.
Yeah, go for it.
Since you're not doing it.
Well, am I supposed to tell you what I do, or am I supposed to tell you what I would say you should do?
Well, yeah. I mean, so I mean, I obviously see a fair few running injuries here, and they're
really?
all. He's sarcastic too. So it's all from that constant sort of forward motion, right? And so the obvious things is, I found a lot of runners, actually, shockingly to me, don't even use a foam roller. You know.
A what? Sorry. I'll stop it.
This is gonna go really well.
I'll stop. Sorry. Go ahead.
So foam rolling would be a good thing for you to do, Loka, on a regular basis.
And, you know, do you run into the thing where you can hear like someone say, yes, this is exactly what you're supposed to do, and then 3 days later it's like, oh yeah, you really don't want to do that. It's really bad for whatever. And all of a sudden,
you mean hearing different information?
Yeah. So, you know, with foam rolling and like what it does to your sensory and how it's traumatizing to your nervous system, and I'm like, oh well, like.
Well, but I think that's kind of confusing
that makes it hard for me because I'm like.
But it's also
is it good or is it not good?
Use it as a valid excuse not to use it.
Right. I don't want to mess. I don't want to mess with my nerves.
Traumatize your nervous system. You know, I'm a big fan of foam rolling.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I use it specifically a hard roller. I'm going to use for those deep myofascial trigger points, and I'm certainly not going to roll back and forth on it. Like often, as you know, people do it wrong. But sometimes it's not applicable for people. I mean, the people who are more more chronic pain, maybe highly sensitized, superficial fascia issue. You know, we did a talk a couple weeks ago now on melt therapy, which is more a soft roller that you use to really address that superficial fascial layer.
Okay.
And that's much more of a nervous system reset. It's for rehydrating your fascia. And it's a really different experience than the hard foam roller.
Are those the white ones that break down like right away? You just kind of save one of those?
Yeah, kind of. But no, they're special rollers. They're
Okay.
really bendy and soft, and it's a whole system that I'm only just now learning about. But it's kind of a neat complement. But I think, you know, the kind of the hard foam roller for the obvious overuse areas. You know, your hip flexor group, you know, and on runners a lot upper back, you know, and opening up the chest and all that type of thing. And then the obvious question too is what your thoughts are on building in like other stuff, like the cross training piece. I mean, all runners tell me I should be cross training, but I'm not.
Right.
And I'd love to see what do you think about that? Should they be?
I mean, yeah, it's obvious. I think it's one of those things that, like, you know, as a runner, you're continually in the sagittal plane of motion unless you're not doing it right, and then then we're trying to correct that or trying to tell you, oh well, the reason you're injured is because you're twisting to or whatever you're side to side. I think I mean, I could always say like, as soon as I get injured, I'm going to do such a good job of. Okay,
everybody listen to Loka. Okay, so we're not going to listen. I'm teasing you.
Once I get injured, you watch out. Watch out! I'm gonna get so much more sleep. I'm gonna stretch some more. My diet's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna hydrate, and I'm probably gonna be doing. I'll get back to doing spin class. I'm gonna be doing some strength training. Yeah, I think as runners, you definitely and any athlete, you know the things that you should be doing.
Yeah.
But it's not until you go to the doctor and like, hey, we're going to do a scan. You might have lung cancer. Oh, I better stop smoking. I better change my diet. I'm going to do all these things. But unless you have the scare, chances are you're going to just kind of stay.
That kind of lure. If I were to say to you, Loka, you know, I want you to run into your 80s, but if you did this 10-minute thing every day, you have a higher chance of doing that. Would you as a runner go, oh yeah, I think that works for me? Or because you haven't gotten scared yet, you would still think,
I've gotten scared before and then I've gotten away with it, and so I think
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's hard. I think if I was working with somebody and I was talking to them and they wanted to say what they should be doing, I feel like I could do an amazing job of giving them some framework and say, you know, I'd be an awesome mentor and like.
You're a classic provider.
Yeah, what do you need? Yeah. How can I help you? Because I feel like I'll work with you on this, and I'll even plank with you because it's built-in time for me.
Yeah, right.
I mean, when I have injured athletes. I sometimes use that as my opportunity to like,
rehab in?
Like we should start planking and we should start, you know, let's start stretching together, and like all of a sudden like we should foam roll, and then I'm rolling out my calves and it's like great, but
really good.
I wouldn't. I'm not finding that time on my own where I do that. So I think I need the group, whether it's injured athletes or it's you know, maybe it's a class.
I teach a foam rolling class.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, perfect. Great. Let's see, what else? I think it's interesting, and then we'll kind of wrap up, but I want to know, I know you, just from listening to your other podcast and looking at your work and stuff, that you've changed your diet quite a bit. I always feel like diet is not one shoe fits all. You know, I really think everybody responds a little differently. Sissel and I are doing the whole. We're doing the Whole30 right now.
That's tough.
It is.
That's
Well,
good for you.
it
Good for
is.
you, but it's a completely total like overhaul of your what you
It's an
what you normally do.
overhaul. Yeah. Everyone who knows me knows. For me, it's the wine.
Okay.
You know, and that's a hard one.
Okay.
You know, because it's a habit. But we're 4 days in, and we feel like both of us feel fantastic.
Oh.
Like super energetic.
Oh, that's great.
Sleeping great. We both feel like less inflamed and just generally better. And you, it sounds like maybe you've had like a progression of diet changes.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I just changed.
Yeah.
I try and change. In college, I took lots of nutrition classes, and
Yeah.
I think nutrition is one of the most frustrating topics to me because it's like everyone knows exactly what you're supposed to do. There's so many experts out there, but there's other people that are proving those experts wrong all the time. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like foam rolling.
Yeah.
It's really confusing.
I like to listen to Rich Roll, his podcast. I don't know if you ever listened to
No,
Rich
I
Roll, but he interviewed this guy that was from Australia that ate potatoes for an entire year. And it was just russet potatoes, not like it wasn't yams, sweet potatoes, it was like just straight ahead russet potatoes. He did all
Only
this.
potatoes.
Yeah, he did all this research on superfoods, like that game. If you're stranded on a desert island and you could only eat,
Russet potatoes.
what would it be? He narrowed it down to his choices to either be banana or potato, and they thought he'd kind of get sick of banana. And I'm trying to think. There's only and he wouldn't do all this extra fancy stuff to it. It would just be potato.
That's terrible.
So he each month he'd go and follow up with his doctor, and his doctor would do all this blood work and stuff and figure out what these deficiencies were going to be. And he was just doing amazing. He was like over 300 pounds, and his goal was like, hey, I have an eating disorder. I need to get on top of this because I have no self-control. And he wanted food to be more about I need it for nutrients, not for just this like indulging in like I'm going to eat this entire cake. I have no control over that. And so he got control of it, and his weight came off. His numbers just were amazing because like I love the stories of people that like don't need to do medication. They can use, being healthy,
Being food,
the lifestyle changes as opposed to, oh, I've got high blood pressure. I better take medication for that. Well, you could do something else too. Or I have cardiovascular disease. Okay, well maybe I'll cut out those things that are maybe contributing to that versus going on.
Yeah, I think diet's super powerful.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is. And I think are you still vegan?
I am.
You are, yeah. Which is that's what I think.
I think I have to
that's
say
really
I think I
hard.
have to say plant-based.
Oh.
Because someone corrected me once where I said, I'm vegan too, kind of. He's like, well, what do you mean by kind of? And then he kind of listed off these things that I think meant that you were part of the vegan club. And it's like, I have a leather belt on, but I haven't purchased it since I went.
Yeah, I heard that's
so
okay.
so that's kind of okay.
Yeah.
But I think he had these other things, and I was like, oh wow, like
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way. And so I think for me it was more about health.
Yeah.
But
Rather about clothing and items like that.
yeah, more about health. But then I
Yeah.
think once you're in that environment, your compassion grows for how animals are treated, and so
Definitely.
that's been helpful. But I think for me, it's just like figuring out how can I feel and look fit, because I shouldn't run like 50 miles a week and feel out of shape or look out of shape. So
or feel crappy, and
Crummy,
also
yeah.
if you feel like when your body feels like it's breaking down, right? I mean that's a huge tip off that you got
Yeah.
inflammation going on.
I just completed the New York Marathon. And I was like, I felt like a little bit beat up, and I was
Yeah.
going to have to turn around and start training for Boston. And I'd never done 2 marathons that close together. And I was like,
it's amazing.
I was like, okay, well, I have nothing to lose. So I did this little vegetarian experiment, and I was like, if I end up winning the race, then I can blame it on the diet, because obviously it wouldn't have been anything that I would have done,
Right.
because I have no business running 2 marathons that close together for me. Obviously someone can do a marathon and back to back in 2 days and be totally fine. But so I did vegetarian through the training for Boston. That summer, my friend Stuart said, "Do you want to do a 30-day vegan challenge?" Like 30 days? Yeah, man, I want to
Sure,
try
I
that,
can do
because
that.
I didn't notice a huge difference with being vegetarian. So maybe vegan is going to be that big, huge change. And it was a big change.
Yeah.
But maybe like Whole30, if you're dedicated and you do that and you're getting all these healthy recipes and you're eating tons of leafy greens,
Yeah.
you'll really notice the benefit. But then as soon as you start sneaking back in the processed foods, even if you're staying away from whatever it would be, as soon as the processed foods come back, then I think those benefits, unfortunately, kind of
Unravel.
you you could be an obese vegan.
You
And
absolutely
it
could
means
be.
it means
Yeah.
hey, good for you. You're not eating dairy and you're not eating meat, but are you healthy?
Yeah.
And so.
But that's really it, you know. And next week I'm talking to a naturopath, Dr. Hoppins, and we're talking about food allergies
Okay.
exclusively because I think that's a huge piece of it that
Yeah.
we do these eliminations of certain food groups and we feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think often we're not really sure why. But
Yeah.
but you know, it could be that you have a massive dairy allergy.
Right.
Right? I mean, who knows? I mean, it could be I have a massive dairy allergy since I'm not eating it right now. You know, but I've been tested and I don't, so I
Yeah.
don't know. But I mean, it's a really big question.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, tune in next week.
Yeah.
Thursday.
I mean, you think about like if you go to a doctor and you're sick and they say, all right, we're going to put you on this special diet and we're going to take out these certain ingredients. And you do that and you feel better and you do well, that's great. But why would those ingredients be okay for someone else then if that would be what a doctor would take out of someone's diet if they're trying to help them be healthy? And all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, is there something to those ingredients that you've removed that would make me think that I don't want to eat them anyway if I'm okay? And, you know, are you okay? Like, yeah, sometimes I get bloated. Like, well, why is that? Is that something you're eating that's irritating you? Or you know, we can think like, oh, I'm completely fine. Or you can talk about attention deficit disorder and diet.
Yeah.
And so it's like, are these ingredients impacting people or affecting people in different ways? And they just wouldn't have a clue that like, it was that carrot that they ate or something.
Right. Well, you
that
don't
wouldn't
know. I
be.
mean, food allergies are extremely interesting, and
Yeah.
they can be both like the kind of you eat peanuts and your lips swell up,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of thing, and it could be something that you're not instantly reactive to, but you're sensitive to.
Migraine headaches or something.
Right.
Or
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
it's intense. So it's a really interesting. But okay, so
Okay.
I'm going to wrap up. But thank you so much for coming out.
Okay,
and
my
chatting
pleasure.
with us.
That's fun.
I really want. Is the Green Lake Running Group open to other people to join?
Yeah, we're a free running group.
Okay.
We have runs every day of the week. Some early in the morning and some later in the day. Yeah, so we're at
Like a website or?
yeah, rungreenlake.com is
rungreenlake.com.
Is our meetup site, and that's
Okay.
just where people can see what our running schedule is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say everyone's welcome. It's just one of those things that we try and create the environment, and you kind of just have to bring your own motivation, because I think that we definitely love new people coming and running with us. Everyone's welcome. It's super exciting when new people join. It's just they kind of have to have that hunger to just like
jump in
and be a part of it, and not kind of get caught up in like, oh, I'm worried people won't like me, or I'm not fast enough, or you know, whatever that would be. Like, just come.
Yeah.
I always think it figures itself out.
Yeah.
Whether you had someone to run with or not, did you show up? Did that event get you there, and you actually exercised? Maybe that was actually awesome because it happened, and keep coming. I don't know.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Valuable.
Okay.